Regular meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission for June 17th, 2019 at 9:58 p.m. Let the record show that Ron Wickers is not present. All other commissioners are present. Moving on to item 2, our consent agenda. We have a few items on the consent agenda tonight. Item A, consideration possible action, approval of minutes and excused absences. Item B, consideration possible action, preliminary plat of Savannah County Road 58, Phase 4, plat 19-00038. I believe item C has been removed from the consent agenda by staff.
Yes, sir.
So hearing that, we have items A and B on the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Moving on to item 3, new business. Letter A, consideration and possible action, variance to create a flag lot, VARP 19-00011. This is a request of Victoria Billings of ALJ Lindsay, the applicant on behalf of Kirby Pearland LLC owner, for approval of a variance permitted in sections 2.6.1.1B1 of the Unified Development Code ordinance number 2000T to allow for approval of creation of a flag lot. General location is the north side of Frugy Road. Hope I said that right. East of Kirby Drive. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Have staff report.
Yes, sir. The purpose of this item in creating the flag lot is to provide additional access and parking to an existing Lonza facility in the LNR PUD. This map currently shows the property as zoned S2, but it's in the process of being rezoned to be added to the LNR PD. The red outline shows the configuration of the proposed flag lot. The future land use plan shows that the property is located in the lower Kirby urban center area. This slide shows the survey of the proposed flag lot. It'll have the 50-foot wide flagpole that will connect the property to Frugy Road. Staff recommends approval of the requested variance because it meets the criteria for approval for a flag lot found in the UDC. And again, the letter of intent the applicant has states that they wish to provide expanding parking for the existing Lonza facility and additional access. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We'll call for public input. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this item? And for last and final time, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this item? Hearing none, we'll move on to commissioners' comments or questions.
I have a comment, just that I do conduct business with ALJ Lindsay, but this is the first that I have seen this, and that does not affect my voting.
Any other comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. None opposed. Item passes 6-0. Moving on to item B, consideration possible action, zone change application number zone 19-00001. Item previously heard in our joint meeting. This is a request of Justin Barnett, Our West Development Company Incorporated, applicant on behalf of Triangle 31 LLC, owner, for approval of a zone change from single-family residential R4 to light industrial M1 to planned development PD on approximately 62.46 acres of land. This is at the 3900 block of Pearland Parkway. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So move.
I have a motion and a second from Laney. And staff report. Again, this item was previously heard a few hours ago, I guess, at this point. Does staff have anything to add to the item?
Nothing additional to add, just that, to reiterate my last comment, we are in favor of the senior living and the availability of those continued care options for citizens within the city of Pearland. This just may not be the right site with the inherited land development issues.
Yes. This is,
What's on the screen is incorrect.
yeah, we have the wrong item on the screen.
We are talking about the French Quarter for this one.
Thank you. I'll kick off comments. Same thing I had during the joint public hearing. My main issue with this is its proximity to pipeline easement for the larger 3-story structure. City has issue with Industrial Drive and the proximity to the landfill for the homes that would be relatively close to the landfill. That's my comments there. I'll be a no on this one.
I lived on, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I lived over on Buckholt for a long time, and the landfill was not a big deal. But I want to know, the pipelines do give me pause. Is there, can I ask a question of the?
Can you pull up the pipeline? Can you pull up the
Can you pull up
pipeline
the
map?
pipeline? Can I ask you if? He's pulling it up. The 3-story building is on the pipelines. Is that accurate?
It is not on the pipelines, it's between the two pipeline easements. There is a, do you have the site plan? I don't have my pull. On the north side, there is 3 90-foot easements, and on the south side, there is a 60-foot easement. We have sent this site, just to say, we've sent this site plan to both Phillips, ConocoPhillips, and Kinder Morgan. They generally do, they have consented, they have no objections to the proximity. They require a 50-foot setback from the closest pipeline, is their criteria.
Do they know exactly where their pipeline is in their easement?
Absolutely,
Are
and
they
we
the
have
only
to
two owners?
Pardon me?
Are they the only two owners in that easement?
No, I've got an entire list that but
So
they,
you stated 2 owners don't have a problem with it.
the closest owner on the south side and the closest owner on the north side.
So the
So that's within the 50 feet
Also-
rule.
Also, these pipelines go all the way through Pine Hollow and many subdivisions, which I did Pine Hollow. It goes right next to, I got a daycare sitting on it, 518 and in front of Pine Hollow, shopping centers. And actually, I haven't done a project in Pearland that didn't have a pipeline on it.
Did you happen to see the 10-foot hole in the ground by the apartment complex on Brookside Road? Just
No,
before
but
it-
we don't have any salt domes underneath this project.
Oh, this was a line strike. The city has a report from the fire department from that night on it.
But the 50-foot easement is satisfied.
Yeah, they required us to be 50 foot away from it.
Thank you.
If, the city of Austin passed some pretty restrictive setback requirements for pipelines within the city of Austin. The biggest restriction in the city of Austin is on multi-level buildings of this type for this type of use. High density, elderly care, hospitals, they would have to be 200 feet away from a pipeline in Austin, from the nearest pipeline, because of the restrictions Austin's put in place. Pearland hasn't put in place any restrictions But this commission has the ability to set an offset. Depends on how Lawrence and crew look at our pipeline section in the UDC and how that's defined. But we do have that ability, I believe, in this commission to do so. I love the development. I do. We had another one behind Home Depot. Same thing. They wanted to put a building right up against an easement. 50 feet for the density of this building with the people in it. Would you put a high school in there? Would you put a high school between those two easements? Probably not. I just can't, in good conscience, vote yes on this. I just can't do it.
I have some comments. I think the reward outweighs the risk. And so Shadow Creek has a landfill. I think that's the largest subdivision in Pearland. And I think we've talked about pipelines being near residential neighborhoods in some of our meetings, so I don't think that matters. I think the reward outweighs the risk.
Do you know?
I'm sorry. I mean, Shadow Creek Ranch, they thought it was okay there too, and they've got huge issues with smell there. I know there's two different classes of landfills, but it's a landfill. If you drive down Dixie Farm right now, you'll catch a whiff of the landfill every now and then. You can't say you haven't smelt it driving down Dixie Farm Road. And we're going to be 1,000 to 1,500 feet with a residential neighborhood right across the street.
It's a class 4 landfill, and I've had Forgotten Angels for almost 20 years now, and we've never noticed anything.
I was just going to ask if it looks like that these buildings that are being constructed next to the gas pipeline, like you said, they need to be 50 feet away from the actual pipeline. They also can't be, within the easement, so it's not saying that the edge of the easement is where the pipeline is located. Do you know approximately how far the actual building construction is from the pipe itself?
Yeah, it's 50 feet from the pipe itself.
Okay, so you're right
Yeah.
at that 50 feet.
Yeah.
So have you obtained the easement to that space?
It's not, it's a setback that
You said that the land contains easements, pipeline easements, correct?
yes.
How many and how wide?
There's 2 easements. One's about 60 feet. The other one's about 90.
Can you place a building in that easement?
No, I can't come, I can't come
So
within.
we're really talking about the distance from the pipeline easement line to the building.
Well, from the pipeline itself, not from the easement,
The
it's,
owner's going to tell you 50 feet from their pipeline.
that's correct,
But
and
what's
it
the
ends up,
closest
it's
pipeline to that
about 10
easement that's-
foot, about 10 to 15 foot inside.
Okay, so there's a room for probably 3 or 4 more pipelines inside that easement. Does the city?
I would have
How many
to
permits has the
give them
city
permission.
received for new pipelines in that easement in the past 3 years? Do we know? Do we have that data? Because they're putting one in now,
I-
and that's probably the second or third one in the past 3 years.
I don't know if the staff in the room has that information, but I do know that there are 2 more recent pipelines that are trying to locate here in Pearland. I don't know if it's in one of these easements or not.
My point is that the largest risk is during construction of your facility, that you're going to be running trucks on top of the easement, and any further development of that easement with the operation of the pipelines, putting in new ones, and that would go on. That would be the risk to damage the pipelines. Other than that, there's probably a very low risk of anything happening to the pipeline if the ground's not being disturbed. But you're going to have, this is an active easement. It will have work in the future. and it goes right in front of this building and right behind the building.
I have one pipeline easement, the Phillips, that's on the south side, that will be crossing with pavement and utilities. The one on the north side that's near the lake will not be crossing with utilities on the other side of it, or paving.
Do you know what's in the easements? What are they, I mean, what's in the pipeline?
Yes, it's propane, and there's, Phillips has propane lines on the south, and there's, I think, 4 different pipes on the north side, which is on the side of the lake.
There's 2 high-pressure ethane lines, 800 PSI ethane lines that go through there. There's numerous HVL lines, highly volatile liquid lines that go through there, aside with gas transmission lines as well. I'm not going to beat it anymore. I mean, I'm going to be a no. If y'all want to vote yes to put this building in the middle of these pipeline easements, I just can't do it under good conscience. If anything ever happens to people in that complex and I voted yes for it, I couldn't live with myself.
Well, we're talking about major corporations who this is their business of putting pipelines down. So
We've had a recent incident with a pipeline that blew a 10-foot hole in the ground out by and dirt 300 yards from the hole over by the complex at Cullen and Brookside.
well, we're trying to help aging people, so I think the reward outweighs the risk.
They're not going to request to put in more pipelines in a neighborhood.
Oh,
Sure they will.
They will.
Oh, yeah,
There've
they
been
will.
2 or 3 put in the last 3 years.
For sure they will. If they have land, they're going to put pipe
I don't
on it.
have that much land left.
Dixie Woods did something that some subdivisions don't do, some developers don't do. They ran the pipelines through people's backyards. So the people's backyard actually has 8 pipelines running through their backyard. If you look at the satellite images of that subdivision, you will see people have structures on top of those pipelines. Because they put them in their backyards, pipeline companies don't see it because the easements are in someone's backyard. All the older subdivisions further to the northeast, they have them run through people's backyards too. We just don't do that. Kevin wouldn't develop a subdivision and put a pipeline through through somebody's backyard anymore. That just isn't done. What's the setback? This city hasn't dealt with it. I've got emails going back to 2013 bringing this up. We've yet to even look at the UDC section as it pertains to pipelines and do anything about it. Define it, yes, no, whatever, have not done it. I understand they're everywhere. I really want y'all to talk to Diane Thomas and see the impact when that 1 in a million thing happens and it kills your family. You don't have to worry about putting them in one of these homes. Talk to this lady and hear that side of it.
I don't think they're all over Pearland, and we build on top of them all the time. That's the thing.
Vote yes.
I just don't know how do we overcome it.
Let your conscience be your guide.
So I don't mind the gas pipelines as much, as long as, all of the guidelines and restrictions that are put forth by the pipeline companies are being met. And I know that they have to review your plans for any crossings that you have, as well as during your construction. They may have specific requirements for crossing, proper covering over those pipelines are required. So I don't have as much of a concern there. I think that I do have some of the additional comments that were brought forth earlier in the evening, especially the turning radius. If Industrial Boulevard would become a dead end for any heavy traffic or larger vehicles. I think that some of the multitude of items that do deviate from the current UDC, I have a little bit more concern for items like that. I don't know if that's something that could be worked into this plan.
Yeah, and we did it, I don't know if you're familiar with Bella Vita, but we used the same type, except at smaller lots, because they're all one stories, and so they take up a large, and so we had the sidewalk thing going on. We had setbacks and side setbacks. We had a lot of variances when we did that PUD years ago. And it's, Center Point has 14-foot or 15-foot easements in the back, and these people don't want to, the way we do the homeowners association is that the homeowners association mows everybody's yard, so nobody has to mow it. And so nobody really, they like to plant a few plants. And so we kind of did all the stuff we did typically in Bella Vita, and it's very close to that. And also I have on the turnaround, I have another 60 feet right away on the south side of industrial through driver pipelines land, so we can make that as big of a turnaround as we can. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Further comments?
My comment is I don't think Industrial Boulevard should be extended anytime from where it is. I don't think that it should ever be connected with Pearland Parkway. I can't see why it's an issue. I don't know why it was ever put on the thoroughfare plan. I just think it needs to be done away with and renamed. There's nothing on there close to that has ever been used. Pipelines are going to be everywhere, and pipelines that are maintained and the rules followed. 99% of the time when something happens to a pipeline, the rules have not been followed because some contractor violated something. They're everywhere. They're going to continue to be everywhere. And I don't know what we can do. We could just stop building, I guess. Anything. I think it's a good project. I don't think industrial belongs out there. There should not be any industrial property along Pearland Parkway. If we can't have gas stations on Pearland Parkway, why are we trying to have industrial on Pearland Parkway? I mean, it doesn't make sense. So the variances, that's the reason we do a PUD. That's what they're out there for. If we didn't want to have any variances anyplace, we wouldn't do PUDs.
Any other comments? Y'all ready to vote? Hearing no further comments, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion passes 4-2. Moving on to item C, consideration possible action, zone change application number zone 19-00012. This is a request by Kevin Cole, applicant on behalf of Greater Barrier LLC, Series D owner, for approval of a zoning change from General Commercial District GC to Plan Development PD on approximately 0.439 acres of land. This is 3718, 3804, and 3808 East Walnut Street. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Second.
We have a motion from Laney, a second from Mary. This item was previously heard in our joint meeting as well. Staff have anything to add to the report?
Nothing additional for this one.
The commissioners have any comment or question for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion passes 6-0. Item D, consideration of possible action, zone change application number zone 19-0013. This is a request of Chad Tooman, Sideline Investments LLC, applicant on behalf of THV Properties LLC, owner, for approval of a zone change from single-family estate district RE to single-family residential R4 on approximately 79.1925 acres of land. This is at 6700 block of McKeever Road, County Road 100. I hear a motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Also heard in our joint meeting. Staff have anything to add?
Just a reminder that staff is not recommending approval of this requested zone change.
Okay, we have time for commissioners to ask questions and comments. Mary, do you have any comments?
I just have a lot of concerns. I think we may need to postpone. I'm sorry.
This is the one we talked about, cluster, PD, all different things, right?
I think they might need to come in and request a blended or sectioned zoning on it so that we knew how much the density, and then they can do a cluster. But remember, we changed the rules so that they have to have it zoned before they can do the cluster.
Would staff be in favor of it if it was?
So let me jump in here. We've got a zone change application on the table for R4. Unless the applicant wants to speak and change that to anything other than R4, I kind of read the tea leaves that R4 is not something that everybody's real interested in. I understand that, but we have an R4 zone change on the table that would zone the entire property at R4. Unfortunately, this commission doesn't work with what ifs and partials and that. We have something in front of us. We have to either vote on it for, against, or postpone it to a later date. Or we can amend the motion and change that R4 to an R3 or an R2 to come back. But that would be at the applicant's suggestion or his approval. We get into these things where we mess with zone changes, and we're making a deal here on the night. The applicants come before us wanting R4, and it's my opinion we should vote on the R4 or hear from the applicant and see what other options we have at our that we could do tonight.
Ask him.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily, sorry, were you?
No,
go ahead.
I don't necessarily have an issue with, the planning that you're issuing or showing us. I think putting R4 on the entirety of the property and having that live with the property does cause some concern.
Yeah, and that's not the intent, and I understand that, and that's what I was saying earlier, if there's another way to do it without doing a PD. I mean, the thing is like the city incentivizes certain developments. This area needs help. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for a little R4 to help the process. If I don't know, it would be a question for Martin, I guess, if it was tabled, and can we modify it to a split zoning or something like that? Because I can get you pretty close on where we want. I mean,
So let me jump in here. You heard council's opinion. You've heard this. You've heard opinions from our commission. I would suggest we postpone it to a later meeting and have you go over those options now that you've heard some input from council and the commission, and come back with another plan or this plan if that's what you want to go forward with. But what I don't want to do is have the commission vote and have a unanimous against, which ties council's hands with which it's an option for a unanimous vote against. So we don't. I want to give you the option, weigh the options here, and if you want us to postpone it, we can postpone it for 2 weeks. Come back in 2 weeks and see where you're at.
yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah, they threw several options out there about, tying their approval to a certain layout or something. So I'm open to.
If I was suggesting
that.
something, and I know that PDs are the devastating tool of developers, and it just costs a lot of money. I know that the cluster developments are still costly, but that doesn't go through as many steps as the PD does. I think everybody's on board. Next door there's a PD that went through a lot of work to get that PD. If we granted R4 and just said, boom, you can put in an R4 subdivision, I don't think it does justice to the PD that went through all the effort to make that neighborhood. We talked about each area of that neighborhood having a mix. That's all written into the PD. There's green space, there's walkability, there's all that. They've got nice trees. I see the R4 layout you put in front of us. It just looks like a cookie cutter subdivision without much to look at.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but the last project or two projects ago that I sat here and watched, I heard them say that they started their PD in the beginning of December, and so what is that, 7 months? And you voted no on it, so they worked 7 months, put all their, and that's you made my point on why there's no way I'm going to do a PD on this. If you don't want this project, as I said earlier, the best deal is sometimes the deal you don't make. I'm not trying to sell this to you. This is an area that needs development, so if you don't want it.
Let me just ask the question: do you want and this is just, let's be direct. Do you want to vote on what's in front of us tonight, or do you want to postpone it?
No. I would rather postpone it and explore the options that were talked about earlier. I think that's a great option.
The chair makes a motion to postpone for 2 weeks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to postpone. Any further discussion?
If I could clarify, when we talk about exploring different options or what it is that we're coming back for, if we're coming back for a PD, that wouldn't be something that could be changed at the next meeting. If we're coming back for a cluster plan, that's not something that could come back.
So
if we're coming back for a less dense R category, that is something that you can do at the next meeting. And whether that less dense category be dividing the property into 3 different sections with the different things, I think that still meets the UDC, the zoning posting requirements inside the local government code, and it's something that we could bring back at the next meeting that this is.
So understanding that a PD or a cluster development would take much longer to put together with staff, would the applicant like to have it postponed for 2 weeks, or could we put a longer time period on that?
The applicant isn't interested in a PD. He wants to postpone it to provide you with a split zoning plan.
Yes.
If you're not interested in a split zoning plan, then when you make the motion to postpone and it's seconded, I would recommend that you vote no for the postponement and then vote it down so that he knows that this is a deal to walk away from instead of investing further time and energy on it. If, however, you want to give him that opportunity to do the split zoning plan and you think that's something you would consider, vote for the postponement, give him 2 weeks to come back and show you how he intends to divide the property up into split zoning districts.
where I'm at on it is I would be a no on the split zone. I'm a no at R4. It would have to come back as a cluster or a PD.
You can't do a cluster until after you get it zoned.
Chad's done these before.
That?
He's working with Alan Mueller, who's doing the property next door. Come on, guys.
I really don't know what you're talking about because the properties next doors are Keith Ordino's and they're not working on them, so I'm not sure where that came from.
I believe there's another question from the commission.
Question, but can we make a motion for split zoning, a vote on the split zoning?
No.
There's not sufficient information to provide you with the split zoning at this point, so I don't know how you would establish the boundaries to do the split zoning. If your intent is to postpone for the cluster plan or for the PD, that's not possible. We can't postpone this and bring it back. That has to be a separate application. If you are interested in the split zoning, then you would vote yes for the postponement and give the applicant the opportunity to come back to provide you with dimensions, so to speak. He's going to draw some lines.
I'll revise my motion to postpone to allow the applicant to come back with a different zone change.
No application, no postponements required for that. You would just vote this one no.
Start over.
Can you repeat what you just said before that?
Just leave it the way it
What we
was
could
and
do?
don't change it.
I just want to understand what you're talking about.
Yes, sir. So you have two options. Option one is to postpone this and give the applicant an opportunity to come back with a split zone plan. Option two, if you want this to come back as a PD or a cluster plan, is to vote this down. And then if the applicant wants to come forward, because he would have to do different things for a cluster plan or for PD, that is a separate application. So that cannot come back after a postponement. Yes, Ms. Katie?
Can we ask the applicant a question?
Absolutely, ma'am. That's within your prerogative.
Do you have any interest in a cluster or a PD?
No.
Thank you.
If you're going to do that, then just vote no.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll go with option one.
So we're going to postpone.
There currently is not a motion on, well,
Yes.
I think that there was a motion to postpone on the table. It hasn't been seconded and voted on.
I will
wanted to
second.
clarify what the purpose of the motion was.
Mary
before
had the second.
We had,
I apologize then. I didn't hear that, Mary.
we need to vote.
A motion on a second to postpone for 2 weeks. All those in favor of postpone, signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion postponed passes 4-2. Moving on to item 4, discussion items, discussion of proposed UDC amendments.
I believe item C had been removed from the consent agenda.
No, item,
I thought they
A
said,
preliminary plat of Stewart Heights at section 14.
no, we're on to new business. We just finished item D. We're moving on to item V, discussion items, discussion of proposed UDC amendments.
Yes, sir. And I think the staff's point is that 2C was removed from the consent agenda.
Yes.
However, it wasn't withdrawn. It was just removed from the consent agenda to be placed as a new business item because there's a discussion issue regarding
Okay.
that was not what was presented.
I apologize.
I thought
I thought
it was taken off the consent agenda.
very good.
Like the item was removed from our agenda in
No.
total.
No, I wasn't.
it was just removed from the consent
From the
agenda
consent
because there's
agenda.
some there's an
Sorry.
issue
Sorry, I
that prevents it from being a straight consent.
Okay, I misunderstood. So we'll move to item C, consideration of possible action, preliminary plat of Stewart Heights at Savannah, section 14, plat 19-0037. This is a request of Jennifer Curtis of META Planning and Design, the applicant on behalf of Savannah Development LTD, owner, for approval of the preliminary plat of Stewart Heights at Savannah, section 14, creating 55 single-family lots and 6 reserves, plus or minus 16.5746 acres of land located to the north of County Road 58, west of Augusta Manor Drive. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Staff report.
This item is located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, located in Fort Bend County, as shown on this map showing the aerial photo and the extraterritorial jurisdiction. At issue, the applicant had originally proposed the 6 reserves. They wish to postpone the item to the July 1st, 2019 Planning and Zoning Commission with the purpose of adding an extra reserve. And that concludes my presentation.
Just postpone. We need to make a motion. Or revise the motion, postpone.
Make a motion to propone. Was there?
We have a motion on the table for approval. We need.
What was the date they wanted?
Do we need to amend that motion to postpone?
July.
Yes, so it would be,
Yes.
just a motion to postpone and
What was the date?
July 1st.
Move the
The next
post-
Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
I move to postpone this item until the July 1st regular planning and zoning meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second to postpone. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Motion to postpone passes 6-0. Item 4, discussion items, discussion of proposed UDC amendments. We're going to go through section 2.
No.
Line by line.
So this was put on for discussion just because I wanted to give y'all the opportunity again to bring up any issues before I bring a completed set of proposals for the July 1st. As I previously stated at the last meeting, that I wanted to give y'all the opportunity to go home, absorb, read over it a couple times, really dive in and think about the UDC and how it affects you as a commissioner.
Saying it with a straight face.
And give you the opportunity to really have that good feedback.
I've got 2 items. One is our definition of payday loans, title loans, pawn shops, cash advance, title loans. Specifically title loans, where that lies in our use matrix. If that is with payday loans, cash advance stores, gold and silver exchange. And since we brought it up tonight, the section on the Planning and Zoning Commission's input to specifically easements around pipelines and setbacks. That section's been brought up before years ago, 4 years ago in particular. The UDC is very unclear in what this commission's directive is. That section uses the word shall quite a couple of times. So I'd really like to get some clarification if we're going to revise the UDC to see what our purpose is in regards to that section of the UDC. If it needs to be taken out, if it needs to be enhanced or better defined, whatever the commission thinks, but we've turned to that page in the UDC over the years and said, what does this mean? It's not very clear to the commission. Those off the top of my head are two items, and the LED light section that we discussed last time. Don't really know that there's an answer there for anything existing, but I think there's something we can do for the future, seeing as all these CUPs tend to add that restriction kind of by default now. Does anybody else have any items of concern in the UDC that staff needs to hear?
I don't have them available at this moment.
Is it acceptable for the commissioners to email these to you? Is that
As long as
appropriate?
you're not adding in multiple commissioners within your email them all day.
Okay.
The store that we discussed last time, is there a way to look into the regulations or guidelines? Or are there any that regulations and guidelines that go along with those stores?
To take CBD sales out of general retail and put it into something else.
Yes.
If that is your
I'm
suggestion.
curious of the states, what makes CBD oil, if it's a legal product, I don't really have an issue with it. But some of these places you see selling this stuff, you don't know if it's legal or not. I mean, it's hard to tell. And I don't want to say the product's bad. It's just new, and we don't have that product defined in it's just in general retail, which, if it's an issue, let's look at it. If not, then it's just like any other thing you buy over the counter.
Right now, I think the governor just signed a bill regarding some of that.
Yeah.
We might need to take a look at that new law, too.
Might need some input from outside sources. Maybe Lawrence has some input for that item.
The only input that it's not a discussion item it's a discussion,
UDC.
proposed UDC amendment. So I may be wrong about this, but I believe those products, kind of similar to vaping products and vaping accessories that some people think are not meant for vaping, or marketed for other purposes, illegal purposes. You may have some of these you might have some of these products already being sold in other places. They're just not stores limited to selling of these items. And when that type of issue comes up, the question always is, why would you regulate it if the store advertises it as this, but not if it's at a convenience store, Walmart, or other general retail? And you're absolutely welcome to provide those regulations and discuss it if you want, but
I've seen the products and how costly they are. I mean, I'm not buying them, but I just wonder about them. If it's a fine product, then great. But our definitions in the UDC, I think we need a tobacco store. We don't have a tobacco store. You can go in these places that sell tobacco products, tobacco smoking devices, and they don't sell tobacco, which is kind of odd. That doesn't pass the funny smell test. If you're selling pipes for smoking tobacco and you don't sell tobacco, it just doesn't make sense to me. So we need to make it a definition and make sure that these, I think we kind of lump the vape stores in with tobacco products. And I really don't think those two stores, if you go in them in Pearland, the vape store, vape lounge is separate from the smoke shop / accessory store that I don't care for in the city. Anyway, that's my comments. Any of the commissioners have any other comments on the UDC? If not, if you can't think of them tonight, just email them in. Just make sure you don't include all the commissioners. That wouldn't be a good thing. And then they'll circulate that information as appropriate. I appreciate all the work you've done on the UDC. I know that that's a big task. Just getting the land use matrix in a usable form is huge. I mean, that's been looked at for years now, and you're finally getting something. You're leading that effort to get it, and that's going to help quite a bit.
I don't know if this is old, but it says CBD oil is illegal in Texas except unless you have epilepsy. So it might be, it's from 2019. So I don't know.
I believe that the state just passed recent regulations that expand those. So it might be that the appropriate place to put these would be the same place you would put a pharmacy because you need these for those.
What was the law change?
It's from May
Remember,
2019.
What was the law change on vaping? Didn't the age change?
The age requirement for vaping, I believe, changed, and the P&Z in its last vape shop essentially was ahead of the legislature and did what the legislature ended up doing in regards to expanding it to not allowing anybody unless they're under 21. I'm sorry, over 21.
We said 18, I think.
well, that's because they hadn't changed the law yet.
I'd have to double check.
He just said we were cutting edge, so I'm taking him at his word. We're gonna go with that. Commissioners' activity report. Anyone have anything to report? Hearing none. The next P&Z regular meeting is July 1st. I will probably not be at that meeting. Just FYI. Staff have anything else? Commissioners, anything? Hearing none, we'll adjourn at 10:49.